If you like the content we bring you about the heavy metal world, please like, subscribe, and comment to help us grow the channel.
This is Matt with Metal Express Radio. I have with me the one and only Brendon Small, the mastermind behind Metalocalypse. How you doing, man?
Not bad, not bad. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for joining. Dethklok has a new album entitled The Death Album 4, along with a movie called Army of the Doomstar, which is out August 22nd. What can you tell fans about the upcoming releases for Dethklok?
Well, we got a whole movie coming out, so it's a big, kind of final statement for the whole project. It's a long time in the coming, long time in the making, and it's not just a movie, it's Death Album 4, and there's also a soundtrack, a film score soundtrack that all kind of goes together. So I think it's like one big, huge, everything is kind of equally important in this thing. So Dethklok, yeah, we're back with the Death Album 4, and you're going to notice it's a little bit more intense, a little bit heavier, a little bit more aggressive, and we kind of divided the album up into two halves, which is the kind of like songs to get into a fight to, and then something a little bit more kind of bigger and mystical and more expansive and epic on the other side. So you can expect that, but you'll hear it's just a little bit more aggressive, just a little bit more of a heavy metal dare than any other records have been.
And this is the first Dethklok album that you've done since the Death Album 3, which was released in late 2012. So how was the writing and recording process going into this?
This one was very different for a couple of very good reasons. One was that before I recorded, I was robbed, and all of my favorite guitars were stolen.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, it's awful. What are you going to do? But when somebody took a crowbar and busted into my studio and robbed all my stuff. So I had to... and I couldn't really record in this normal way that I would with amps and everything, so I did everything differently with the guitars that I still had that were hidden somewhere else. I think I was in rehearsal for a show that we did this time last year in Philadelphia. We did a one-off with the Adult Swim Festival in Philadelphia, and I had the only guitar that survived was this one, which is my Epiphone Ghost Horse signature model. This is something I put out during the pandemic. And it's 24 frets with a whammy bar. So what you hear on this record, and one of the big differences that I guess Squiscar has a whammy bar and 24 frets where he didn't before. So that's an exciting thing. So I played all the rhythm guitars with that, and I used a lot of different kind of amping techniques and reamping techniques, and I used the Neural Audio Quad Cortex a lot for that. So I think we got a lot more aggressive sounds. The other thing is I worked with a great legendary drummer, Gene Hoglan, for... I guess this is my 6th album that I've done with him, maybe the 7th, but and maybe the 8th actually. I'm not sure, because I think I've done 7 records, maybe 8 altogether. Some of them for the Metalocalypse project, even like the Doomstar record, which is a rock opera, to the score album, which also has Gene's drums on it. So Gene and I have worked together for a lot, and we use somewhat of a similar approach. We kind of work with the same very small group of people, and but again, we're just always trying to like push it to keep the same DNA, but let it mutate just a little bit more as we keep coming back to it.
How has it been bringing in Neely Brosh and Pete Griffin to the touring lineup?
Well, they're great, and I think this whole thing kind of got started, and everything started kind of happening again in 2019 when we did a big one-off for like 20,000 people here in Los Angeles at the Bank of California outdoor whatever stadium, and so bringing Neely Brosh on to play was really great. She's a great player with great tone, and Pete had played with us in 2012, 2013 when we did the Death Album 3 show. So Pete would kind of sub out for Brian Beller, so he knows what it is. Pete's also done a lot of work with other metal bands. He does a lot of work with Brent Hines from Mastodon, and just a cool guy. Here's the thing, all those guys are just such solid musicians, and they're such perfectionists, and they just don't miss a note. So if anyone's making a mistake, it's going to be me, and that's the way I like it.
Coming up in the fall, you'll be going out on tour with Babymetal. What are your expectations on the upcoming tour?
Well, I'm a real big fan of the show that we do live, and we keep changing it as we go, because we need to play the hits, we need to add in some new songs, and we need to just kind of make sure that there's something specific and new about it. So I'm really happy. We're doing that right now. So I'm working with the team, putting that whole thing together. And what we really want to do, I go to a lot of shows, and in my mind, I'm always critiquing. What's the band doing? What's the audience doing? I'm always looking around. I'm always trying to look at the audience. I try to check out how the audience is reacting to a show, from, King Diamond to Iron Maiden to, like, Gojira and Mastodon. I'm always checking out what the audience is kind of getting into. And I always think, all these poor jerks got paid for parking, they got babysitters, they rearranged their lives to come here. So how can you give them the best show that you can possibly give them? So that's what I'm thinking as a show maker. And I think we deliver something that's pretty cool, and it's worth leaving the house for. And I think Babymetal does the same thing. They're theatrical, and I love that in my heavy metal. From King Diamond, again, to Iron Maiden, there's theatricality inside of their performances. And I think it's worth kind of going and seeing something like this, because what you're going to get from our show is something that would be like a big heavy metal show in Las Vegas or something like that. Just something bigger and more bombastic than anything you've seen. Something that just really likes to direct attention to itself. So that's what I think people should come out and check these shows out.
And you've taken out bands such as High on Fire, Machine Head, The Black Dahlia Murder, Converge. How has it been to just take out such a variety of bands within the genre of heavy metal?
All those bands I think are so great, and I'm lucky. I feel lucky that they've come out with us, So I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I have a lot of respect for people that do this for a living. So anytime anyone wants to join me out there on the tour, I'm really happy to have them. And all those bands that you're talking about, from Black Dahlia to Converge to High on Fire to Mastodon to Machine Head, have all been, like, it's been such a pleasure to just hang out with them and talk and be on the road with them and share the stage with them. It's a wonderful night. So I don't know. I feel like the luckiest person in the world to occasionally go and make this my job.
Is there anyone that you would hope to tour that you haven't yet?
Cannibal Corpse.
Now, would you have like a duet with Nathan Explosion and George Fisher?
Yes, absolutely. That would be one of my favorite things. I mean, I have done a thing before. We did this again, this Doomstar Requiem. It's a rock opera, and there is this one thing where I play one of the characters, and Corpse Grinder plays another character, and we're kind of doing this kind of contrapuntal duet that is kind of like talking over each other and kind of like just like overlapping and pre-lapping each other's lines. And that's kind of the thing. I would love to find a way to do that live with Corpse Grinder. I think that band is so talented. Every time they put out a record, I'm so excited. One of their new songs dropped on my phone because I pre-ordered it. So I was just always so excited to hear what they do, because I think they keep pushing the ball forward. They're always doing something creative.
Yeah, I think Paul, the drummer, recently even said he feels like they're just getting better with age, and I have to agree with that.
I think in so many different ways. I mean, when I get a new Cannibal Corpse record, I'm like, okay, this is going to be like, they pack it with so much information. There's so much like kit bashing of great lyrics, of just really inventive riff work. And to me, it's like jazz. It's just like, there's so much stuff underneath everything else. There's such a complicated web of interesting music going on in there. And the more I listen to it, the more I love it. I love it.
And going back to Dethklok and Metalocalypse as well, do you feel like both the show and the band has just opened the door to a whole new generation of metal fans that have just never really given the genre a chance before?
It's funny. You bring up something I think is a really important thing, because heavy metal just isn't out there in the open for everyone. It's not on streaming. It's not on, there aren't like Cannibal Corpse, posters as you walk down the street. You don't see any of that stuff. So yes, I think it's really important, because I don't think I would have really found heavy metal if my friend down the street when I was like 13, 14 years old hadn't, started talking to me and said, hey, come over to my house. I'll show you how to play Black Sabbath, and I'll show you who King Diamond is, and I'll show you who Black Sabbath is, and I'll show you who Metallica is, and I'll show you who like King Diamond is, and then also I'll show you who Led Zeppelin was. So I had a friend who walked me through everything in like one afternoon and made me mixtapes and really held my hand and crossed me over the threshold. Started me off with like the cool Metallica ballads, like Fade to Black and stuff, so that I could go into like Call of Cthulhu so I would understand it better. Just really give me a perfect frame of reference. So I always think it's important to kind of pass that information along, because you may have a major metal fan who just hasn't discovered it yet. And I think the TV shows whether or not we wanted it to be this, I think that's kind of what we wanted to be, is that cool friend down the street that kind of turns people on to heavy metal, because there's a lot to get out of it. And we know how badly we wouldn't be able to live without it. And there's a lot of people who haven't discovered it yet who will soon learn that they can't live without it too. So I think the show, because it was in your living room, because it was showing in your house, definitely, I've heard that a lot from people, that they got a lot out of just being exposed to it. And they went on their own journey to discover what they liked.
It seems like Dethklok is going to be your main priority for a bit and keeping you busy for a while. What do you see as plans when the Dethklok schedule settles down?
This is funny because I just finished this movie where, I write the movie, I direct the movie, I produce the movie. I work with this great team. I also play all the guitars and I get to write all the music, and it's really fun. Creatively, it's the most fun. But at the same time, it's kind of like your parents caught you smoking, so they make you smoke the whole pack.
Oh, man.
So that's like how I feel. And at the end, you're a little sick, right? But you're also addicted. So the question is, the answer to your question is, I want to make another movie, and I think I want to move into live action, and I want to keep on using heavy metal, and I want to keep on using cool dark horror elements and things like that. So I've got a plan, and that's what I'm going to try to set up next, is a movie that I get to, a live action kind of creepier, darker, heavy metal kind of a movie where I can write it and direct it and write the music.
And on the show, you've been able to work with a lot of killer special guests, such as members of Metallica, High on Fire, and Mastodon, to name a few. Has there ever been anyone that you've wanted to bring on the show that you haven't yet?
I've been trying to get, and we almost made it happen a couple times, but Dave Mustaine, who's a hero of mine, and I think one of the great heavy metal guitar players of all time. So we just kind of we were like passing ships. I got to talk to him in person. So he was one of the dudes that I was like, big hero. Rust in Peace is one of the main records. Him and Marty Friedman to me are just like monsters. So, and I love what he's done ever since too. And I think he's just a great songwriter and just a powerhouse dude. So the fact that I even got to talk to him was just amazing. And I also there have been people where, we've thrown the blanket out and said like, hey, what we used to do is when people were in town touring, that's when we would grab them if we were also in production. But if we weren't in production and they were in town, we couldn't really do anything because we didn't have scripts or anything. So that's how it worked. And we managed to get a lot of really cool people who would accept the challenge to be funny and be part of our world.
Is there anything that we haven't gone over that you like to throw in?
Movies coming out, records coming out, tours coming out. I think you covered it all. But I'm excited. I've gotten some kind of nice early reactions from people about the movie, and I'm excited to see how the rest of the world checks it out. It's a very different project. It's bigger, it's darker, it's more intense, and that's what the whole project is, from the music side to the visual side. It's just a little bit more elevated, and it's just more exciting to look at. I think it's more cinematic than anything we've done before too.
So my last question I have for you, did you ever see Dethklok and Metalocalypse developing such a huge following that it has to this day? And I mean, this is going back to when the show launched. We're going 2006, are we?
Yeah.
Yeah, so going on almost 20 years of Dethklok and Metalocalypse. Did you ever see it becoming like the behemoth that it is?
I don't know. I had this one bet that when we were building this show and selling this show to Adult Swim, was that kind of like what we were talking about earlier, that the heavy metal community is often left out. They don't have their own thing. They don't have someone they don't have a thing that they can point to and say that's funny and that's for us. And that was the bet I was making, is that maybe we could find something and we can connect, and then also, how do we protect it, and how do we just make sure that it's being treated the right way, which is both serious and both joking at the same time, and how can the heavy metal community be part of the seriousness and part of the joke at the same time. And that's also why we started casting people from the metal community, because we wanted to know that they're in on the joke, and the audience figured that out very quickly. And the bet was, can we do something for an audience? There are so many audiences out there that aren't being spoken to, and they usually just speak to the masses, and just kind of, but there are these kind of subgenres of audiences that I think just really are way more powerful than the mainstream. And that was the bet. And that was the thing that we chose. And And based on that equation, it would make sense that it would still have a little bit of popularity. And the trick is, how do you make a show that will stick around and be worth rewatching or talking about, or music, or any of that stuff? And that's what we're trying to do. That's what you hopefully try to do. And I also feel just intensely lucky to ever be creative and to make that part of like how I make a living. It's the luckiest place you can possibly be.
If you like the content we bring you about the heavy metal world, please like, subscribe, and comment to help us grow the channel.